hey, we got it in a couple weeks, just a week and a half away, actually almost a week away. Be on a plane, going to Chicago for Forbidden Door. And Forbidden Door, man, it's New Japan versus AEW. Been waiting for this for years and years. And yeah, this should be a good show. And I'm very excited. The Forbidden Door show. So surely we're going to get Kazuchika Okada. No Okada. Well, Tetsuya Naito. I mean, Tetsuya Naito's been one of the biggest. No Naito. Hiromu Takahashi. He's like probably arguably been one of the most popular stars in New Japan over the past. Hiromu's not on the show. And neither Shingo or Sonata. So no LIJ, the most popular faction. They're not on the show. Okay. Well, you know, Kenta's got some. Kenta's not on the show either. Zack Sabre Jr. challenged Daniel. No Zack Sabre Jr. Can we get a comedy thing with Danhausen and Orange Cassidy and Yano and Taguchi? No, probably not that either. Yeah, I'm very curious about this show. Welcome back to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. I am talking today about the Forbidden Door show coming up, and I was going to wait on this until after the Dynamite After Dominion, which happened this past Wednesday. And I watched the show, and we did get some new matches for Forbidden Door. But actually, two of them are interpromotional matches, and then one's a women's match for the women's championship, which I kind of expected they were going to do that anyway. But this was underwhelming is what the word that comes to mind with the Forbidden Door show so far. Now, before we get on to this and all the AEW sweaties, which I usually don't have to argue with them too much, it's been since the Exploding Ring incident when I really had to go and listen and talk to a lot of people trying to defend AEW against something that's like, no, that's just bad. It's just say it's bad. Just say it's bad. The Forbidden Door show, the booking for it, although I can't say it's terrible, I can't say it's all that good either. And I know we have to understand, Kenny Omega is injured, CM Punk is injured, Bryan Danielson is injured, Kota Ibushi has some serious problems with New Japan Pro Wrestling. The unfortunate thing, they can't handle it, they can't help any of that stuff. The unfortunate thing about it is those four guys in particular are guys that you really, when you talk about an AEW New Japan show, those are four of the guys that you're going to talk about almost at the top of the list as far as doing cross-promotional work. We also have an issue with CMLL and AAA and their long-standing rivalry, preventing Andrade El Idolo from having any interaction with Tetsuya Naito because Tetsuya Naito is a New Japan wrestler and they are partnered with CMLL. Andrade works for AAA. So therefore, even though this is the Los Ingobernables mashup that we've wanted for years and years and years, for them to kind of be reunited or to go up against each other, we're not going to get that on this show either. And like I said before, Naito's not even on this show. So I'm going to give AEW and New Japan that. You obviously, these are things that you can't really account for. You can't really do anything about. It's not their fault that these guys and these situations are not going to appear on the show. However, there are things that they could have done on this show that I'm kind of baffled that they didn't do. And even though we're not going to get some of the dream matchups, yeah, some of these long-standing storylines that are left over from the Elite's time in New Japan, which then led on to AEW, we're not getting those resolved. There are still some other cool things they could have done, but it doesn't seem like they're doing any of them. So as of this recording, so far what we do know is going to be at the Forbidden Door show coming up next weekend is the main event obviously is Jon Moxley and Hiroshi Tanahashi battling over the interim AEW World Championship. The winner of that match will then face CM Punk. Either one of those guys facing Punk in the future is pretty cool. I can't see Tanahashi being the AEW interim champion and then going back to Japan to do the G1 for a month. It's not like he can stop in the middle of the G1, so Mox is probably the winner here. So that's another problem with some of the predictability of this. Jay White will be defending the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. We're just not sure against who, as Hangman Adam Page and Adam Cole have thrown their hats in the ring. And I'm not sure if Adam Cole is 100% now. Maybe he will be by next weekend. But I don't know if we're getting a elimination match between Page and Cole to start the show, and then the winner takes on Jay White at the end of the show, or is this going to be a four-way involving Okada Is Okada even going to be on the show? Now, the reason for Okada might not being on the show is that his wife is expecting, or she just had the kid, I'm not sure yet, but she is expecting. She's due pretty soon. So he has been also talking about taking a break after the G1 to take some time off. So you would think he obviously will want to be there for the birth of his child. So as Adam Cole said, he's not going to be at Forbidden Door. And I think that was the one that really spurred on me and a lot of other people to start going, okay, now, we were a little on the fence about the show. Now it seems like, okay, this might be a bit of a bust. Back to the card, we got Toni Storm challenging Thunder Rosa for the AEW Women's Championship. Obviously, that has nothing to do with the Forbidden Door, but it's a match on the card. We also have this announced 6-man tag team match where Minoru Suzuki is going to team with Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara, who's recently rejoined Jericho and is now part of the Jericho Appreciation Society, apparently. They will be taking on the team of Wheeler Yuta, Shota Umino, and, of course, Eddie Kingston. This is a weird combination in this match. Just the two teams are just weird teams to be put together. I mean, I'm fully expecting that at some point in time, Minoru Suzuki is going to beat the crap out of Sammy Guevara one way or the other. So, but I mean, I don't mind that match. It's a good match. That would be a good way to start the show, actually, with that 6-man tag team match. But again, it's like, Shota Umino, barely out of being a young lion, and Minoru Suzuki, he's barely been on New Japan's bigger shows over in Japan, and he's not even been listed for the G1, so there's another case there. We have the All-Atlantic Championship match, which is going to be featuring Miro, who is qualified, and Pac, who is qualified. They will be taking on which we assume Malachi Black's going to win his match, and probably Tomohiro Ishii is going to be winning this mini tournament that they're going to be doing over in New Japan. So there's something in there, though, that's pretty cool, is that one of the things that I did want to see is the big bruisers, some of the big bruisers in both companies clashing with each other. We're not going to get a one-on-one, but there is going to be a point in the time, apparently, and that's taking that Ishii is going to be in this spot. But the idea of Ishii facing off Miro is going to be a holy crap moment for sure. And it was just announced that Will Ospreay will be taking on Orange Cassidy. That's a match that was not in the top 5 wrestlers I thought about for Will Ospreay's participation in Forbidden Door. But that being said, even though I didn't anticipate it, when I saw it, I was like, ooh, that's going to be good. Although I kind of wanted him to go against somebody else. And for Ospreay, I was thinking Sammy Guevara, just the crap talking alone between the two of them. And, not only the match, but the 3 weeks of lead-ins into the match, and I'm going to talk about the build, or lack thereof, for this show a little bit later on, but the build would have been good for that. And then you would have had the Jericho Appreciation Society, which is all about Jericho, against the United Empire, which is all about praising Ospreay, which would have been kind of cool there, but we're not getting that. Or, Ospreay, another person for him was Jericho for me. No sign of Darby Allin on any of this as well, and just a lot of people missing. But the last match that I want to talk about is the rumor. Now, this is really getting interesting here. Is presumably we're going to get FTR against the Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb, who are the recently recrowned IWGP World Tag Team Champions, against the Ring of Honor Tag Champions. As the Young Bucks just won the AEW Tag titles, but apparently the program is not going to be the Young Bucks going against the United Empire. It is the ROH. Remember, this is the AEW versus New Japan show. It's the ROH Tag Champions against the IWGP Tag Team Champions, which is, yeah. Then there's the optics of this whole thing, and a lot of people have talked about this too, and this is a problem, and you can check out my friend Dave Coco over Coco Sports. He talks about this a lot, that over in Japan, there is this kind of rumbling going on where Pro Wrestling Noah is starting to gain traction, and they are doing this We Are Noah thing, which is kind of, it's kind of a double entendre where they're talking about, we are Noah as a company, but also you, the fans, you Japanese wrestling fans, are part of us. And it's kind of a jab at New Japan that tends to lean heavily on gaijins and puts the gaijins even ahead of the homegrown Japanese talent in recent years. So the fact that on this show that you have very few actual Japanese wrestlers on the show, I mean, who we got the Great O'Khan, who actually is Japanese and not Mongolian. The Great O'Khan, Tanahashi, possibly Ishii, Minoru Suzuki, Shota Umino. And of these guys, again, Ishii's we've already seen him on Dynamite a couple of times. We've seen Minoru Suzuki in AEW a couple of times, and Shota Umino's been in AEW before. So the really only debuting New Japan Japanese wrestler at the Forbidden Door show as of right now is Hiroshi Tanahashi. And look, I think it's pretty cool that we get seeing Jay White show up is cool, seeing Will Ospreay show up is cool, the United Empire is cool. That's like a fraction though of what I thought I was getting with this Forbidden Door show. So I do feel kind of, again, the word is underwhelmed. And I know there's people out there that already talked to people on social media about this. The AEW sweaty defenders are already coming out of the woodwork. I had somebody say to me, well, I was actually only expecting like 2 or 3 guys. I'm like, the show is called AEW versus New Japan Forbidden Door. It's like Freddy versus Jason, Predator versus Alien, Godzilla versus King Kong. So imagine that first X-Men versus Street Fighter game, which led to the X-Men Marvel games, the Capcom games, whatever. That's been a very successful series. And again, that's an example of a mashup, the way it's supposed to be done. You want those different characters who are kind of similar or would be good, opponents from different universes to come together, and that's what you're supposed to be having with the Forbidden Door here. But imagine that first game and they go, we got Magneto, okay, that's cool, and we got Dazzler, okay, we got Jubilee, okay, we got Beast, okay, Beast, one of the original ones, yeah. Who else? No, that's it. What do you mean that's it? That's it. So wait, where's Wolverine? Where's Cyclops? Where's Storm? Where's Jean Grey? Where's Gambit? Where's Colossus? Where's the Juggernaut? Where are the people that I want to see face the people in Street Fighter?
And I'm gonna need you to get off my back about all of them.
That's kind of what this feels like, and if that had happened with that game, there would be no franchise of that series. And I am kind of concerned about that. I don't think it's gonna be that bad for New Japan that the series, or New Japan and AEW, that the series is going to end. Although it's possible, because if the buy rate's not good, they're probably not going to do this again next year. And that is my concern. It's been my concern. It was my concern a couple weeks ago when I started noticing. I was like, we should be spinning up some stories here about what's going to happen at Forbidden Door, even before Double or Nothing. Just started hinting at things, and then you got like 4 weeks to go full gear into, and that's enough time to do it. And then as the weeks went on, and we didn't see anything, I was getting concerned. And it's not really like they had to do anything that big, too. It was like they do all those little video packages all the time. All you really had to do is like do 2 or 3 of those 30-second video packages during every episode of Dynamite and Rampage and just go, this is Jay White. He is the leader of Bullet Club. He has a history with Kenny Omega. He was the guy that took over, blah, 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 blah. Here's Kazuchika Okada. You may know his name because him and Kenny Omega had this legendary series of matches. He's the gold standard, blah, 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 blah. Here's Tetsuya Naito. He leads Los Ingobernables de Japón. He's got a history of Andrade El Idolo, blah, blah. Like, if they had just done, like, you know those packages that they do. They'll show a guy, they'll tell a little bit backstory for voiceover. Excalibur will over-explain something. Jim Ross will incorrectly explain something. Sorry, JR. And then you'll get some other wrestlers that say, yeah, this person's this person's that. That's all they really needed to do, and they could have started dropping those here and there to kind of get people familiar with the New Japan roster. The probably half or more so of the AEW audience that doesn't either regularly watch or has never watched New Japan. Remember, a lot of those people came over from WWE and had never really seen New Japan and weren't familiar with those stars. There were no storylines being built. The only one we really got was this whole thing going on with the United Empire against FTR and the Best Friends, and I'm just like, where's everything else? Where's everybody else? And yes, you should not have gone, and I didn't go into the show expecting to see everything of all these dream matches that have been listed. We've all come up with them, and when this was announced, everybody started fantasy booking this stuff. And yeah, we tempered our expectations and said they're not going to be able to do everything. There's some reason, some people are hurt, whatever. But I did expect to at least get something. Like the Tanahashi Mox match is actually a match that probably was going to be happening at a New Japan Strong show, one of the ones they've been touring around the States over the past couple of months. So that's been just moved up here to the Forbidden Door, so I guess they're not going to do it there, even though that's where that feud has actually lived, is on New Japan Strong, with Moxley calling out Tanahashi. It hasn't even been really part of the main New Japan roster either. Outside of that, not really getting much here. And I'm sitting here going, where's Tama Tonga versus Scorpio Sky? there's some layup things that are just would be interesting, like the House of Black versus the House of Torture. Even though I can't believe I'm advocating for the House of Torture to be on the show, I do think that would be just visually and thematically wise, just an interesting six-man tag match between those two factions. Why is none of Los Ingobernables de Japón on the show? Not even Bushi. You can't even get Bushi on the show. Come on. No Shingo, no Hiromu, no Naito. I mean, even Birdface Taichi, who's been getting a push lately, he's not on the show. Juice Robinson has had his appendix out, so that's understandable. Also, to be fair, Tony Khan did say he was basing the card on the 1991 Starrcade card in New Japan, which was known as the WCW Japan Supershow, which was, again, as some of you know, was the first New Japan show I ever watched, was that mashup between WCW and New Japan, which is why this show is kind of important to me, because it's kind of like me going back to the beginning of my fandom of New Japan started at that show. And again, to be fair, on that show, it wasn't like a top to bottom, New Japan versus WCW show. I mean, you had a couple of preliminary tag matches as New Japan want to do. Barry Windham and Arn Anderson took on Mr. Saito, and I believe it was Masahiro Chono. You had a couple other opening preliminary matches, but there were three big matches on that card. Again, this is the early 90s, so rosters were nowhere near the size of what they are now. But even back then, the main event was WCW champion Ric Flair against IWGP champion Tatsumi Fujinami. Fujinami won that match, which that's one of those retcons that they did for WCW. It's also one of those world title changes that Flair says, when Flair talks about that he's actually probably more like a 20-time world champion, this was one of the times he lost the title, and technically he won it back that May at Wrestle War. So that was one. You had a grudge match with Sting versus the Great Muta, which was a rematch from their feud 2 years earlier in WCW, which was pretty cool. And again, that's a case where Sting and Muta, they were kind of like mirror opposites of each other in both companies. Muta won that match, and the Steiner brothers won the IWGP Tag Team Championships as the WCW Tag Team Champions from Hiroshi Hase and Kensuke Sasuke. And that was... which is, by the way, if you haven't seen any of those matches, I probably should do a review of that show pretty soon. But that's a great show, and some of those are some of the best matches. And again, that's why I am a fan of New Japan. It was also that show that I discovered. It was the first time I ever saw Jushin Thunder Liger and a match with Akira Nogami, and that was a fantastic match too. And I remember watching it like 10 times because Liger at that time was something I had never seen before. He was doing moves I had never seen before from this world that I didn't even know existed. They had wrestling in Japan, let alone that there were 60,000 people in this place called the Tokyo Dome, and that's where my fandom again of New Japan started. And yeah, I am griping a little bit, but I'm not too pissed off about it. I'm still going to the show. I'll be in Chicago. I'm sure it's going to be a fun show. I'm sure I have a feeling that Cassidy and Will Ospreay are going to steal the show. But again, there's so much that I kind of hope was going to be on the show that's not on the show, and even me trying to tamp down those expectations, even from my expectations being kind of lowered to be more realistic because of injuries and contracts and politics, this is still not cutting the mustard for me, man. I mean, honestly, at this point, I kind of think this would probably have been a good episode of AEW Dynamite you could have done this on, or, I don't know about a pay-per-view, but somebody's going to say, well, that's business. They're trying to get money out of it. I don't know about that. Now you're getting kind of into WWE territory where they're going to promise you something or imply that something's going to happen, and then you go put your money down and then it doesn't deliver. Not to mention, this is the second time a major co-branded New Japan show with another company kind of sold tickets on the premise of people thinking that something was going to be at the show, and then the show happens and it's not what we thought it was going to be. The last time, like I said, was that Supercard G1, or the G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden that sold out almost immediately. And that was before the Elite announced that they were leaving New Japan and Ring of Honor. And a lot of people bought those tickets expecting those guys to be on that show and it'd be a big thing. And it turned out that none of those guys were on the show. And that's how Jay White says he single-handedly sold out Madison Square Garden. This is 2 times in a row now. I'm wondering if fans are going to buy a third. That's all I'm saying. And I mean, when I say fans, I mean fans like myself who are fans of both New Japan and AEW, who have been watching both companies for years. Obviously, New Japan for many years, AEW since it started. me and a couple hundred other thousand Western fans, we all were along for the ride when the Elite started, when they started being the Elite, when they were 2016 in New Japan and taking over Bullet Club and doing all that stuff and all the Okada matches and the Golden Lovers and all of this other stuff, plus all the history with Kenta and CM Punk and Danielson using his moves, and Kenta is still on Twitter talking about it as we speak right now. MJF doesn't want to be involved with the New Japan stuff, although with MJF you never know what's real and what's not. Although there is an article somewhere where he did talk about that the one guy he did want to face was Jay White, which, yes, please, can we find a way to get MJF versus Jay White?
1,000 tweets a day with a guy named Jay White. And I'm getting real sick of it. Okay? I'm going to be honest. I have not seen enough of this man's stuff. But I can tell you this. Nobody's on my level. Okay? Nobody is. So I would like to have that match just to quell any ridiculousness.
And the combinations are endless. But again, yes, they're not going to do everything on this show. But to get really not anything that makes me go, wow, that's going to be cool. With all the combinations that off the top of my head I can think, wow, that would be cool. Like I said, the word is underwhelming. But again, I'm not going to let this get me down too much. Again, the show that they've put on is a good show. It feels like more of one of those one-offs that they've been doing in the States, which I just went to the DC show. And this is why I'm not too bummed about it, because that DC show I went to for New Japan a couple weeks ago was one of the best live wrestling shows I've been to in a long time. So yeah, I'm going to have fun at the Chicago show. I'm going to have fun at Forbidden Door. But there are a lot of concerns I have now about the buy rate. I have concerns now about what this means going forward in the future. And the three big things, again, for me, and probably for a lot of other fans, the three big things about an AEW New Japan crossover: Naito and Andrade, the LIJ long-awaited crossover; Kenta and CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, and whether that's going to happen. And of course, when Omega comes back, the Omega's history with not only Kota Ibushi, who's probably, well, at this point doesn't look like he's going to be involved anyway, but even without that, remember, Hiroshi Tanahashi beat Omega in his last match, pretty much putting him out of the territory. And of course, the fifth match between Okada and Kenny Omega. These are the things, along with, yes, Bryan Danielson against Okada, CM Punk against Tanahashi, MJF and Jay White, the Bullet Club and the Elite interacting with each other. There's a ton of stuff. Darby Allin and Hiromu Takahashi, El Desperado and Rey Fenix. Just so many matchups that we're thinking about. And if CMLL and AAA can do something with that, if some of these guys come back and are healthy, and if somehow, I worry about his well-being more than anything else, but let's say Kota Ibushi is well and healthy, and he comes to and New Japan kind of cleans up its act with him a little bit, and if Ibushi comes back, or maybe Ibushi goes to AEW, these are all things that we want to see. And my overall feeling, though, is that if you kind of knew that Okada wasn't going to be there, that Naito wasn't going to be there, that Shingo wasn't going to be there, that Hiromu wasn't going to be there, that you weren't going to get certain matchups to get with that people were expecting to see, might have been a good idea not to do this show. But again, it's a business. It's all about money. So I guess, make the cash grab now, but I kind of have a feeling that I kind of worry that the next time they do this, unless they announce, I think they'd have to do this. If they do the Forbidden Door show again next year, they would have to probably announce at least two big main events with actual Japanese New Japan wrestlers besides Tanahashi and a couple guys that we've already seen in AEW already. They're going to have to get a lot of the star power that still exists on the New Japan talent onto this Forbidden Door show. Unless they announce that next time, I know I'm certainly not going to be rushing out to buy tickets for next year's Forbidden Door. I can just speak for myself when I say that. I have a sneaking suspicion, though, that there's probably a lot of people that are going to be in Chicago next weekend that might be feeling the same thing, because it's a thing to go, for a lot of people traveling, hotels, airfare. Now, for me, I don't pay for any of that, but the tickets alone, the tickets were expensive, and that's a lot of money to shell out, and expecting to see a show that you're not going to see or even get a fraction of what you were expecting to see at the show. So that's just my opinion on it. I'm probably not going to be featured on any more new AEW shows and New Japan shows. They're not going to put the camera on me anymore after this video, but you know, I got to be honest with you guys and tell you guys what I honestly feel. It doesn't mean that I hate AEW or I think AEW's trash and New Japan is trash. They're still my two favorite wrestling companies right now. And I just, again, was with all the potential that's there, and even with the guys, even with all the people that are injured that can't be there, with the guys that they still even have on both rosters that are available, it is a little bit underwhelming. But I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think that, yeah, this is underwhelming to you? Do you think this is exactly what you thought it was going to be? And what matchups? I saw you guys wrote tons of matches on prior videos about what you were hoping for Forbidden Door. We ain't seeing none of it, so I want to know what you guys think down in the description box below. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe button, and the notification bell. And be sure to share this video on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, or wherever you talk about pro wrestling and sports entertainment. I will see you guys here for more news, rumors, and commentary on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.